Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Rory O'Toole. And there's a lot of fires right now. It's not good. It's not good. I'm going to be honest. The weather's been terrible. It's been way too humid. I know last podcast I was talking about, oh, it's great. Feels like summer again, this heat. All right. I think whoever was listening upstairs took that a little too much to heart. This heat is ridiculous. It feels like Florida here. It feels like walking around Disney World, but instead of roller coasters and Mickey Mouse, I'm being greeted by wildfires, and we're still in the midst of a pandemic. So straight up not fun right now. So that's not great. That's not great. But you know what is great is talking music. Talking to you fine folks again. Let's ignore the noise outside, ignore the craziness outside, and just get into music. Get it on your headphones. Tune out the world, right? Just to give you a sense of what we're going to be talking about today, guys, we're going to be discussing Barry O. Number 44, Barack Obama, former president, dropped his summer 2020 playlist, 44 songs that he's been listening to this summer. We are going to be going through each song, and then I'm going to give you a review of his playlist. Yes, I'm about to rate a former president, because I'm totally qualified to do this. I'm totally qualified. And then after the Obama playlist review, we're going to get into Classic Album of the Week. And the first Classic Album of the Week that we're going to be discussing is Arctic Monkeys' debut album, Whatever People Say I Am. That's What I'm Not. One of my all-time favorite albums from one of my all-time favorite groups. I'm super excited to get into that. I think you guys will be too. And then at the end, we're going to do a musical what if. I'm not going to tell you what the musical what if is. You're going to have to listen. You know, you're going to have to earn that reveal by sticking around for the whole show. So in any event, let's get into it. Obama dropped his playlist. If you're not familiar, former President Barack Obama has been doing this, I think, since he left office. Maybe even when he was still in office. He drops his favorite movies of the year, his favorite music, and it's always fun to look at. It's like a glimpse into the mind of this one of the world's most powerful men, and a historical figure. Makes him a bit more relatable. Gives you a sense into like, okay, maybe we share, some in common. Not much, but a little bit. And, he dropped his list on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the social platforms. Social media, of course, dissecting each and every one. Being like, I can't believe Obama listens to yada yada. It's like, the dude has an eclectic music taste. I'm a bit skeptical on how much of this he actually listens to and how much is him texting his communications department and him finding out what's trending, what's critically acclaimed. or he gets sent a batch of good stuff and then gets to decide what he likes from that batch. More than likely he has his personal favorites, and then it's a mix of, also what's trendy right now, which I respect, You don't want to send out the wrong thing and get canceled on Twitter for it. Obama doesn't need that right now. So without further ado, looking at the first song he put on this, Texas Sun by Leon Bridges and Krungbin. I honestly don't know how to say their name. This is becoming a fast issue on this show. I think we're going to make a supercut of everything I mispronounce. That'll be good. Krungbin and Leon Bridges, Texas Sun. It's a nice, simple, guitar-driven soul song. Leon Bridges, he always sounds like butter. And Krungbin, I'm just going to keep saying it, even if it's wrong, because, eventually I'll get it right if I say it enough. At least that's what I believe. They have a great sound. They really mesh well with Leon Bridges' voice. And it's a nice little song. I don't love it, but as far as for your summer playlist, you could do a lot worse than this, to be honest. Then we have Forever Begins by Common. I'm not the biggest Common fan. Feels like once you heard one or two or three Common songs, you've kind of heard them all. That being said, he does have some bangers. I respect the man's catalog, but I just think he's a bit derivative. This song, nothing special. Just your average Common song. We get some references to average Chicago life, some vivid storytelling, some historical references, and all in Common's voice. If you like Common, you're going to like this song. I know Obama likes Common because Common's probably been at every White House dinner, and obviously he's from Chicago. Obama's from Chicago. They got that connection there as well. Then we have Don't Walk Away by John Legend featuring Coffee. We talked about Coffee, I believe, in the last episode or maybe the episode before that. I love her. She's a rising reggae superstar. She's got so much potential. And John Legend, I don't hate him. I don't love him either. But the man certainly knows how to belt a ballad. I'll give him that. The man is always providing great soundtrack music. It feels like a dozen movies have used John Legend as the allow him to sing on the score of whatever they're doing. So I was not expecting this combo, John Legend and Coffee. Did not know Obama would be listening to this either. But, I've seen that John Legend and Chrissy Teigen are pretty good friends with the Obamas. So I guess it makes sense. My Future, Billie Eilish, next song listed. We talked about that probably 3 episodes ago. Really love this song. Billie Eilish really growing as an artist, and not only musically but just lyrically here. Kind of optimistic, which you're not used to from sad girl Billie Eilish. And my favorite part of the song is just that tempo change around like minute 30 or whenever. That nice bass, that nice like bounce comes in. Really, really makes it dancey and fun. And like I said, it's sort of like a lo-fi Georgia Smith song if you want to imagine what it sounds like. But I highly, highly recommend you go check that out. Give it a listen. Then we got Love You for a Long Time, Maggie Rogers. I love Maggie Rogers. She just seems like such a kind, nice, gentle soul. I want to hang out with Maggie Rogers. She's confident. And this is a romantic track. It's a bit like pop country, but it's endearing. Really, really good vibes on this. Then we get For What Is Worth by Billy Porter. Obviously, that's the cover of the Buffalo Springfield song. And, yeah, kind of fits the moment of Black Lives Matter and the whole awakening of police and racism and the intersection of all those factors in society right now. So that sort of fits. Not surprised Obama would list a song with that sort of content. Then we got Feeling Good, Jennifer Hudson. Bit more dynamic instrumentation than usual for Hudson, which helps because a lot of times it's just her belting out her voice, singing her heart out, and it's not the most exciting thing. It's just like, okay, you're going to perform at every Grammy Awards, you're going to perform at every Oscars, just sing one emotional ballad. Is that all you do, Jennifer Hudson? Here she's showing a bit difference, showing some bounce, it's a bit dancey actually. So I see why Barry liked that. Then of course you get the Savage remix, Megan Thee Stallion, Beyonce. Obviously you've heard that song. If you have not heard that song, I assume you are just living under a rock. I'm not going to go into that one. Made It, Tiana Taylor. Tiana Taylor is just so underrated. One of the best R&B singers right now. This song, it's a banger. You know, Barack, I respect you for putting this on the list. You need some bangers. You got a banger here. Work, Rihanna and Drake. He's still listening to Work by Rihanna and Drake. That song will just not go away. It will live forever. Then we got Don't Rush, Young T and Bugsy featuring Heady One. You know, British rap continues to rise. Barack Obama's listening to British rap now. It's a simple, catchy chorus. You got that light Afrobeat rhythm. The remixes on that are pretty good too. Check them out. Know Your Worth remix, Khalid, and Disclosure. It's a mainstream radio hit. I get it. You got to put that on for summer. You got to have one mainstream radio hit. Come on, summertime. Then you get Twist and Turn, Pop Can, featuring Drake and Party Next Door. Drake continues to do a fake Jamaican accent. I'm really not here for Drake pretending to be something that he's not, especially when he's going to take culturally sensitive things like that and just use it for a rap song. Like, what are you doing, dude? He's done this a lot. And I know that Pop Can is on OVO, so he's not going to say anything. But yeah, it's so lame. You got to stop that, Drake. It's so lame. Then you get Smile, Wizkid featuring Her. This is a good energy, but I was kind of disappointed in this one. I don't know if Her and Wizkid are the best match, to be honest. They're kind of coming from different musical corners. I mean, I respect them trying to make it work. I don't know if it fully paid off. Then you get Could You Be Loved, Bob Marley and the Wailers. I mean, come on. Do I need to explain this one? Obama, you have my respect. Absolute classic. Absolute perfect summer song. Then you get Be Honest, Georgia Smith featuring Burna Boy. This is just straight heat. Like, pause the podcast right now and go listen to that song. Love it. Respect you, Barack, for putting that on. Then you get Gemini by Princess Nokia. So, you know, it's a chill alt hip-hop track. Surprising pick. Surprising. I did not know Barack Obama's listening to Princess Nokia. You know, more evidence that maybe he's getting a little help here. Because I'm like, how the hell is Barack Obama stumbling upon Princess Nokia? Like, she's not underground, but she's certainly not mainstream. Then you get The Climb Back, J. Cole. We also talked about this a few episodes ago. I'm surprised he chose this one instead of Lion King on Ice, because Lion King on Ice was a bit more melodic, bit more palatable. The Climb Back's a great song. It's just very bleak. Very, very bleak. But the bars are strong. But I was just like, yeah, This is a dark song for you to pick, Brock. You want to tell us something? You want to tell us something? Then he drops Memory Lane by Nas. I mean, you know, you got, if you're putting Illmatic in your summer playlist, that's when you want the high five from everybody. Like, okay, that's a great pick, obviously. Blue World, Mac Miller. It's kind of a sad song for a summer playlist, but when you think about it, this is actually the perfect song for quarantine because it's a bit trippy and frustrated and sort of a woe is me song. That's how we're all feeling right now during the pandemic. Then you get No You Bear, Andrea Valley, you know, R&B, neo-soul artist, smooth, it's a comfortable cut, short and sweet. Then you get Two by May. I believe that's how you say it. Again, the pronunciations. We're going to have to work through this. Love it. Feels like magical realism in audio form. I love this song. Love it. Please check it out. Then you get 12.38, Childish Gambino, 21 Savage, off Childish Gambino's latest album where every song was put in numbers so that we would not remember any of his songs. It's like, why would you do that? Like, I understand, I respect Childish Gambino as an artist. You know, he made a choice here to go for the minimalist thing, just do numbers. But it's like, if you're trying to have a conversation about his album, you're like, oh yeah, I like that one song, 12.265. Like, what do we do? We're talking about Prisoners here? This is ridiculous. Just give it a song title, dude. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, 12.38, Childish Gambino, 21 Savage. One of the better tracks off that project. 21 Savage killing his features, talking about Popeyes. It's a funny song. It's a good summer song. Respect, Barack. Then you get All Day Music by War. It's a spacey soul cut. You know, this is something that Obama's definitely listened to, old school. And then These Arms of Mine, Otis Redding. Classic. I know Barack's listening to that too. That is a real choice. Otis Redding. Can't go wrong there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the second half of Obama's summer playlist. Stick around.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
And we back. Still talking about Obama's summer playlist. We're going to get into the second half of it. And remember, stick around to the end of the show when we get into our musical What If. You're going to want to hear that. Anyways, second half of Obama's playlist. My man's coming out with some heat. The Billie Holiday track. The Queen herself, I'll Be Seeing You. I mean, honestly, this is kind of a funeral song, which also really works well for this pandemic. But apparently, it's a long-distance love story for ladies with their men abroad. So this was released in World War II. So it's kind of a song about saying, I'm going to be seeing you again. You know, you shipped off the war. It's a kind of a longing song for your love when he's out in the field. But that really works right now with the pandemic because a lot of people, it's like, you know, I'll be seeing you when this all blows over. So it feels like some of us went off to war at this point. Really, really good tonal pick right there, Barack. Then we get Liberation by Outkast off their spectacular sophomore album, Aquemini. It's a hybrid of gospel, spoken word, and jazz on liberation. Feels timely for the Black Lives Matter movement as well with the content of this song. And you also get Erykah Badu on vocals. It's when she was with Andre 3 Stacks. God, what a powerful relationship that was. Yeah, I see why Obama picked this in light of everything that's been going on with the protest. Really fits that whole mood. And another song that fits that mood is Rank and File by Moses Sumney. It's a protest anthem. You know, it's uncomfortable, but it's confrontive. It's a searing police criticism. It's interesting to think of Barack listening to this song. Obviously, he has his own opinions about police reform. This seems to go a bit further than he maybe wanted, at least when he was president. But maybe he's shown some growth and has changed his mind a little bit, at least on how far he thinks things should go reform-wise. Because if he's listening to songs like this, I mean, that's got to be influencing him. Then we get Do I Do, Stevie Wonder. A hell of a tempo change going from the Black Lives Matter movement to a wedding song. But, you know, Barack needed a mood switch. I totally get that. We all need that in a good playlist. You got to have those mood switches. I love the guitar on this song, too. We know Obama loves Stevie Wonder anyway, so we were going to get one Stevie Wonder song. It was inevitable. We also get The Steps by Haim. Talked about this song on a previous episode. This is just a fantastic song. Everything you want out of a rock song. If you don't like this song, honestly, just don't listen to this podcast because I don't know what your taste is. This is undeniable rock perfection. Lovely song, and I'm so glad that Barack Obama is listening to Haim. That makes me very happy. Women in Music 3. Go listen to that. That whole album's great. We also get Nick of Time by Bonnie Raitt. I did not know that Obama listened to Bonnie Raitt, but apparently he does. It's a fun 80s song. She's she's got a great voice. I always enjoy Bonnie Raitt. And it's a feet shuffler. Maybe you're not dancing per se to this, but you're going to shuffle your feet a little bit. You're going to do a little waddle like a penguin. We also have All I Want to Do by Sheryl Crow. I'm going to be honest, pretty ignorant of Sheryl Crow's discography. Apparently, this won Record of the Year at the 1995 Grammys. I don't know what was happening in 1995, but this song, I'm sorry, should not win any award. Barack, if you like the song, good for you, but it's pretty damn generic. It's pretty shallow. I don't understand how this won a Grammy. Kind of speaks to the Grammy Awards. How long they've been bad. It's kind of amazing. Cannot believe this won Grammy of the Year award. That is just nuts to me. Sorry to any Sheryl Crow fans, though. I mean, maybe she's got some other good stuff. It's not even a bad song, but it's definitely not a good song. Don't know what's happening there. Then we had Goodbye Jimmy Reed by Bob Dylan. It's a good old school blues track from Dylan's new album. Definitely kind of political. I could see Jimmy Reed and that whole album appealing to Barack Obama, especially because it's Dylan. And I think he said he's a big Dylan fan, so it makes sense. That album came out a few months ago. maybe we'll talk about it on the podcast later on because it is Bob Dylan. You know, that's just like a cheat code for any music podcast to just go down a big Bob Dylan rabbit hole. We also have Be Afraid, Jason Isbell. He's a great songwriter. Great songwriter. And that is another one that feels sort of political. So, I mean, you have an interspersing of just fun summer songs on his playlist, but you also have some political stuff, which makes sense because it was a very politically charged season past few months. So he's responding to that. Makes sense. That's what he's listening to. Neon Skyline by Andy Schauf. It's a fun little jam. Don't really have much else to say besides that. Solomon's Song, Cassandra Wilson. Very muted, emotional ballad. I'm pretty meh on this song. I mean, she brings it, though. I mean, she can sing. It's just the emotional ballad stuff has got to be really good for me to bother listening to that. Then you get Cayendo, Frank Ocean. Great crying song for the pandemic. We should all be listening to this and just crying when we're stuck in our houses. I wonder if this was the acoustic version. I don't think it's specified in his list, unless I'm mistaken. Actually, let me look right now. Did he say? No, he didn't say. Don't know if it was the acoustic version. I like the acoustic version. That's the one that's available on Spotify anyways. Really, really sad song. It's Frank Ocean. He's going to bring the tears. He's going to bring the cries in the best way possible. I know Barack can't deny Frank Ocean's talent, just like none of us can. Then he follows up Frank Ocean with My Affection, Summer Walker, featuring Party Next Door. I feel like his daughter showed him this. I find it really hard to believe Barack Obama just stumbled upon this song. Malia or Sasha had to have shown him this, right? Like, is he really listening to Summer Walker himself? Like, is that really happening? I kind of doubt it. The Sun, Kyle, featuring Bryson Tiller and Raphael Sadiq. You know, Kyle kind of fell off, but good for Obama still supporting him. I don't think Kyle sucks or anything. He just sort of fizzled out. So I was not expecting his name to end up on the list here. Good for Kyle. Maybe let's give him a boost. Then we get PGT, Party Next Door. This is like the third Party Next Door song. What is going on? What is going on? Barack, why do you like Party Next Door this much? Are you in your feelings about something? Is it just the election coming up? It's got you moody and emotional like Party Next Door? I don't understand this. I really don't get it. Like, Obama listening to Party Next Door is just completely unexpected and frankly weird. Like, to have 3 Party Next Door songs is just weird, man. It's not only are his songs always needlessly emotional and dramatic because obviously he's under the wing of Drake, but also just really shallow and kind of scummy. You know, you can listen to whatever you want, Brock, but, you know, 3 Party Next Door songs. I have some questions for you about what you've been doing lately, what you've been doing with your time, bro. After Party Next Door, we get As I Am by her. Now, this works a lot better than her collaboration with WizKid, in my opinion. She always shines on her own. It's a smooth snapper. And he seems to like her, so, you know, it's good. It's a good pick. Then we get Already, Beyonce featuring Major Lazer. If this wasn't on Black is King, it might have been in the movie itself or built around it. Major Lazer, obviously a massive group. And then with Beyonce, they always work with the biggest names. It works. It's a fun song. It's a great, great, great summer song. Lots of energy, obviously. That's what you'd expect from it. Then you get One Life Might Live by Little Sims, the British female rapper. She's really cool. Highly recommend you guys check her out. Not expect Brock to listen to her. That is impressive. Then Spaceships by Tank and the Bangers. That is a summer fun song, just filled with joy. That's got a lot of energy behind it. That is something that I can definitely get behind for a summer playlist. That fits perfectly. Then we see Higher by D'Angelo. He's got to play that with Michelle. I imagine that's when he's playing that song. That song is way, way romantic. I mean, that could be played in any season. That's not just a summer song. D'Angelo, you play that whenever, and it's going down. Hope he's playing that with Michelle. Then he's got Let's Get Lost, Chet Baker. Good jazz check. Does his job. My Baby Just Cares for Me, Nina Simone. It's Nina Simone. What am I going to say? It sucked? Of course not. It's great. Impressions, John Coltrane. Again, what am I going to say? It sucks? No, of course not. These two legends back to back, I'm not even going to comment. It's just like the Bob Marley thing. It's not even worth getting into. Obviously, it's good. Lockdown, Anderson .Paak. More content related to the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests. Obviously, Obama's trying to get in touch with all that. Understand where everyone's coming from. And that was a good song. I don't think it's a great song, but it's good. It's Anderson .Paak. That voice is infectious. Then we have Back at It, Lil Mosey featuring Lil Baby, and I refuse to believe Barack Obama listened to this song. Or actually, found it himself. There's no way that Barack Obama was listening to Lil Mosey, talking about she has a fat ass, quote unquote. Just that's what you're listening to, Barack. Come on. I know it's a fun song, but this is for the kids. Maybe your daughter showed you this too. That would make sense. Then Un Dia, J Balvin, Dua Lipa, Bad Bunny. Come on. That song's taking over the world. Of course he's listening to that. And then he ends it with Crown by Chica. She's so fun. She's just always full of positive vibes. She's pretty underrated. I recommend you check her out. That was a good way to round off the playlist. So overall, I like Barack's list. He covers a lot of bases, covers a lot of different genres. He's got a little something for everyone. If you want to be in quarantine, he's got something for you. If you want to be at a barbecue, he's got something for you. If you want to enjoy a sunny day, he's got something. If you want to enjoy a foggy, rainy day, he's got something. So Obama, he's done the polling. He knows what the voters want. He knows what the people want. And, he had stuff that was political. He had stuff that was just fun. He's doing it all on this list. I don't think it's the most amazing list. I'd give it a B. But it's pretty good. Yeah, like an 82%, totally arbitrary percentage number that I'm going to bequeath upon president because I'm totally qualified to judge the president. And that is it for the Barack Obama summer playlist review. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Recommend that you at least check out some of the artists that he listed here. Gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna get into Classic Album of the Week.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back. We just got through reviewing Barack Obama's summer playlist. Reviewed that thing, went through each and every song, 44 for Mr. President, number 44. Now we're getting on to the classic album of the week. Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, by Arctic Monkeys. Let's get through the basics before we really delve into this fantastic album. It's one of my favorite albums by one of my favorite groups. I'm pretty biased when it comes to this. But let's get into the basics first. Give you guys an introduction to those of you who have not actually listened to it or not familiar with it. Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not is the debut studio album by English rock band Arctic Monkeys. It was released on the 23rd of January 2006 by Domino Recording Company. The album was the fastest selling debut album in British music history, shifting 360,000 copies in its first week, and remains the fastest selling debut album by a band. It has since gone 6 times platinum in the United Kingdom, and it contains their first 2 singles and UK number ones, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and When the Sun Goes Down. It's often cited as one of the best rock albums of the decade. Just to give you a sense of the accolades this album won, it was winner of the 2006 Mercury Prize. It was named as the 5th greatest British album by the British magazine NME. It was Album of the Year by NME, Album of the Year by Time, Best British Album at the 2007 Brit Awards, Best British Group 2007 Brit Awards. Rolling Stone 100 Best Albums of the 2000s, it was number 41. Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, number 371. Rolling Stone's 100 Best Debut Albums of All Time, number 30. NME's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, number 19. And number 3 on The Guardian's Albums of the Decade. So, clearly well regarded by the big music press. And just to give you a sense of the lineup, we have Alex Turner on lead vocals, lead guitar. Jamie Cook, rhythm guitar, backing vocals. Andy Nicholson, bass guitar, backing vocals. Matt Helders, drums, percussion, backing vocals. Now, as we know, all Arctic Monkey fans know, Andy Nicholson, this is his only album with the band. After this, he would leave and be replaced by Nicholas O'Malley. So, just to give you some context of when this released in 2006, it was in the context of post-punk, indie rock, garage band acts of the time. Like, think of the White Stripes, Franz Ferdinand, the Strokes, the Black Keys. Sort of rock's last great relevancy in a mainstream sense. And as we see in mainstream music, has sort of left behind guitar-driven music. I mean, obviously there's still songs that have guitars in them, but it's not the main driving force of the music these days. This was sort of the last moment in the UK and in America where guitar-driven music could still be that relevant and have multiple bands be that relevant in a mainstream space. And Arctic Monkeys were sort of seen as a spiritual successor to Oasis, as sort of the working class band for the United Kingdom. They were seen as representing Northern England, which is more industrial. Think of the Rust Belt in America. That's sort of Northern England, where they're from, in Sheffield and Yorkshire. So that was sort of their image. It was, oh, these guys they're sort of a working class band, which is funny because Alex Turner is the polar opposite of Liam Gallagher as far as just personality. And all these guys, they were sort of like hipster art kids, so they're not blue collar or anything like that, at least in their own persuasions, but that was sort of the public image of them. And I think the sound, if you want to get a sense of what the sound of this album is, Rolling Stone described it perfectly as pub punk. Something you play loud, energetically, and catchy in a pub that gets everyone drinking, dancing on tables. That's what this album sounds like. NME described it as scrappy, lager-fueled tunes about being young and bored in a bleak northern England steel town. Even Yanks couldn't resist these raging Brit pop punk gems. Essentially, it's a stripped-down punk rock record with every touchstone of great British music covered. The Britishness of the Kinks, the melodic nouns of the Beatles, the sneer of the Sex Pistols, the wit of the Smiths, the groove of the Stone Roses, and the anthems of Oasis, and the clatter of the Libertines. So, that gives you a good sense of what they're bringing to the table. They're borrowing from a lot of different rock acts, but not only just rock. You can tell that Turner spent a lot of time reading postmodern novels, punk poetry, like John Cooper Clarke, and listening to hip-hop and UK garage with his uncanny talent for observation, capturing the subtle drama of everyday life, and the sort of drum patterns you see, especially with Helders, who, funny enough, wanted to be a UK garage DJ, which is sort of a dancey sort of genre. And you can see that influence on this album. And the common thematic content of the album has led it to be considered by some as a concept album, where you're visiting the lives of a group of young Northern English clubbers, because all tracks are recording first-person narratives of observations made within that context. I bet you look it on the dance floor, still take you home. You probably couldn't see for the lights, but you were staring straight at me. And Dancing Shoes all examine behavior in nightclubs. And From the Ritz to the Rebel is an account of a nightclub bouncer. Red light indicates doors are secured, tells us the typical experiences and troubles of getting a taxi cab at a night out. When the Sun Goes Down was inspired by the prostitutes in the locality in the Neepsend district of Sheffield. Other songs have, romantic relationships, but young love, like Marty Bum. Youth subculture, such as Fake Tales of San Francisco and A Certain Romance. And the songs, they do a really good job of capturing everyday life of the Northern English teenager. And funny enough, though it's so regionally specific, the themes are universal enough to where the rest of England and the rest of the world really could relate to the lyrics and the storytelling of their songs. And that's credit to Alex Turner for his turn of phrase work and just his storytelling ability to turn that very regionally specific aspect into something that was universally understandable. As the New York Times wrote, Mr. Turner's lyrics are worth waiting for and often worth memorizing too. He delivers pithy, unpretentious descriptions of a teenage world defined by daydreams and nightlife. And he has an uncanny way of evoking Northern English youth culture while neither romanticizing it nor sneering at it. The album's title was actually taken from a line from the novel Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, written by Alan Silito. The name was chosen when Turner sort of saw the similarities between the two works and said, oh, this title's super appropriate for what we're writing. It's kind of about Saturday nights and Sunday mornings. Turner said, it's good because the book is called Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. That's kind of what the album is, so there's a link there. And also, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things about us, and you don't have control over it. He also said that songs including View from the Afternoon, Dancing Shoes, Still Take You Home, and From the Ritz to the Rubble all cover that bit of the weekend and feature the same character. Now, Arctic Monkeys weren't breaking new ground here, but they executed a tried and true formula for youth excitement, buzzsaw guitars, overwhelming drums, clever riffs with rough edges, and catchy lyrics, created a classic album due to the strengths of Turner's voice and the grassroots energy they embodied in the music. Now on to the favorite tracks of this album. The View from the Afternoon, that's the first song on the album. Fantastic opener. It sets the stage for the album with its tone of a frustrated male teenage communication, a night out with the lads to the pub, and wry observations that would become a hallmark of Alex Turner's songwriting. You get powerful drums, I can't speak right now, enveloping guitars, and the paradoxical energy that only accompanies, nights out when it feels like any could be the same, but also it might change your life. It's sort of that paradox of going out when you're 19, 20, early 20s, just out of high school. It's like this night, there's a standard routine to it, but at the same time, I'm in the back of my mind hoping that I meet someone who changes my life forever. Then the second song on the album, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. Again, with the long titles. This is such a long title for an album, and he has very long titles for the songs and very specific. It's just a great title. Sums it up perfectly. And this is probably maybe not the most iconic, but definitely 2 or 3 most iconic tracks off this. It's such a crowd pleaser. Catchy as hell. You can't help but dance to it. You get machine gun drums, dance at top of the table guitar riffs, and Shakespeare references. So what more do you need from a rock song? I mean, come on. And on its first day of release on October 17th, 2005, it sold over 120,000 copies in the United Kingdom on its first day of release. Another favorite off this album is Riot Van. Slower tempo than the first half dozen songs, but you get great songwriting. Turner gives us a glimpse into a group of troublemakers winding the coppers up, as he says, interspersed with vivid vignettes and a great outro. This song is just so well written and just such easy listening. Very minimalist, but it does the job. Just evokes such feeling, and you feel like you're right there in the scene. Marty Bum, another favorite. This is definitely the catchiest song on the album. It's a karaoke king. This is one, if they play, everyone's going to be singing it in the crowd. And I think it's the best version of the kitchen sink drama that fills this album with this small tale of a couple's fight. And you get a bit of Yorkshire slang in here. Marty is sulky. That's the translation there. So you're saying, oh, why are you being so sulky, so sad? Marty Bum. And yeah, like I said, it's a concert must. Catchy as all hell. Just a fantastic cut from this album. And then, another favorite track, the last song on the album, A Certain Romance. Closes it out with a bang. Leaves us with a message about, at the end of the day, all these characters and subcultures that we've seen throughout the album. You complain about them, but at the end of the day, you share a lot more in common. And that's sort of what unites you, is the shared experience. And you get a nice arpeggio fade out, just beautiful instrumentation at the end of this. Really leaves you with a good feeling. And so, just to sum it up as why this is a classic, it's that combination of frank and blunt songwriting, harsh instrumentals, and a relatable subject matters. I mean, those are the ingredients to make any album just classic and long-lasting, which this is. And it's a great success story of the 2000s that despite the already manufactured world of pop music at the time, a band with nothing more than well-written songs and a loyal, grassroots-driven fan base spread the word via the internet could achieve so much acclaim and recognition and become the biggest thing in the UK. And I'd say Alex Turner was the best songwriter of his era already with this album. He's only 20 years of age, and he was literally speaking for an entire generation and to the teenage experience, not only for Brits, but, I mean, Americans could relate as well, in Australia, all over the world. He spoke to something that really rang true to all teenagers, all young people. And he's only 20. It's absolutely amazing. And look, when you look at this album, it's just filled with fan favorites, radio hits, and classic B-sides. It's got the full package. If you want a hit, got it. If you want to sing something in the crowd, you got it. If you want to impress your friends because it's not a well-known song, but it's still great, you got that too. You got that as the B-side. Also, legendary album cover. They just took a picture of their friend kind of sloshed on a night out. Put that on the cover. Really summed up the thematic content of the album and the setting of it. Just perfect. And it's so iconic. You know immediately if you're familiar with this album, you can picture it right away what the album cover looks like. And yeah, this album, it's infectious and effortlessly charming. It's just a forced to feel its energy, forced to feel its charm, forced to drop yourself off into this parallel universe that is both completely foreign and completely relatable. This album is such a treat. I highly recommend you guys listen to it. If you like the album, let me know. If you didn't, let me know too. Always willing to have a discussion here on the podcast. After the break, we're going to get into musical what-ifs, so make sure to stick around for that.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. Now, I told you we were going to talk about musical what-ifs. I teased it. So let's get into it. Musical what-if of this week is, will we ever see a Western music group be as big as the Beatles in the future? That is a big question. That is a complicated question. So let's break it down into a few little segments. So one, why do I say Western? Well, I think we do see a version of Beatlemania, maybe something even bigger than Beatlemania already in East Asia, in South Korea specifically, with K-pop groups. if you're not familiar with K-pop, it's a lot of boy and girl bands who make the version of pop music for South Korea, and they have rabid fan bases, like the most hardcore, cultish, committed fan bases you will ever see in the world. That puts Beatlemania footage to shame, honestly. So I think we already do see that in East Asia. So I feel like the East is off the table because they're already in it. They've already proved that it can happen. My question is, can it happen in the West, and specifically the English-speaking world? Do we ever see something like Beatlemania in the United States, in the UK, in Canada, in Australia, elsewhere? Do we see that happen again? That is a tougher question to ask. Obviously, we don't know. We're talking about the future here. But I think if we're going to judge what happens in the future, we have to look at the past. Let the past be our guide, right? They don't say, history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes, as Mark Twain said. So let's look at the facts of what brought the Beatles to the pantheon that they reached, not only musically but fame-wise, which is sort of what we're focused on here, is just how big an imprint can you make on the culture. Now, a lot of elements obviously played into the Beatles' popularity, some that I'm definitely going to miss, some that I'm overlooking. So this is just my thesis on what made the Beatles popular. I'm not saying it's the only version, the only legitimate basis to analyze the Beatles' popularity from. But let's just look at a few major things. For one, we had the baby boom and the creation of the middle class in America. Now, if you're not familiar with the baby boom, you're probably familiar with the term boomers. That's maybe you're not familiar with that, but I assume you are if you're on the internet at all. If you spend any time online, it even leaks into real life at this point. Boomers are the baby boom generation, and what they got their name from was after World War II. Of course, you survived this terrible war. What are you going to want to do? You're going to want to make babies, and that's exactly what happened in record numbers. So you had a huge influx of young people and a whole generation that was bigger than previous ones. So that created the foundation for a large consumer base that would come of age as the Beatles were coming of age musically. And so the creation of the middle class in America, the mythic 1950s version, if you can picture that in your head, of 2 cars, 2-car garage, white picket fence, beautiful suburban neighborhood. Mom stays at home every day. Dad goes off to work. Just basic Mad Men like Leave It to Beaver 1950s America. That was created in the post-war as well and went hand in hand with the baby boom dynamic. And so basically you had the GI Bill, which after all these soldiers returned from the front, the government subsidized their education because they wanted to have an educated workforce and reward the soldiers for their sacrifice. So they subsidized American servicemen's education and also consider the fact that America came out of the war. Obviously, they faced tremendous challenges. Obviously, it wasn't smooth sailing at the home front, but relative to a bombed out Britain, to a ravaged France that was under Nazi occupation, to a Germany blown to smithereens, to all of Western Europe caught in the crossfire, Russia absolutely devastated, losing an entire generation practically, Japan nuclearly annihilated, Korea, China just emerging from the colonial yoke that Japan had instituted for the past 10 years. and that civil wars as well. The Middle East going through tremendous transitionary period. South America just kind of coming into its own. Australia lost a lot of men as well. They're still wrapped up with the British colonial system as well. America had the independence to do and act on their own accord, and they also had the lucky fate of they were the country who was on the right side, the winning side, and the side that wasn't devastated materially at the home front. So that gave them a huge advantage in the economy and allowed them to become the leading manufacturer base, financial base, just the leading economic center of the world, and sort of use that leverage to create incredibly cheap consumer products and allow an incredible amount of consumer comfort and just social mobility that was one of the most dramatic swings in the history of humankind and was sort of a high tide for American society. So you have all that, which means you have extra money to spend on leisure activities, which includes music and television. So you have a growing middle class, which means you have a growing consumer base, which means you have a consumer base looking for stuff to spend their money on. And initially, what's being offered is pretty hokey and boring, because the one thing about art is it tends to stagnate if things are going too well, if everyone's happy and everyone's fed. It's not a law of nature, but it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't create the best art. You need a little bit of struggle. You need a little bit of drama. You need some kind of conflict to drive art a lot of the time. And you don't have that in the early 50s, mid-50s. So initially the art's not great, but as these baby boom kids are becoming teenagers, they're looking for an art form to fill that void. They're looking for something dangerous, something thrilling, something exhilarating, something that speaks to them on an emotional level. And that's where music steps in, and that's eventually where rock and roll steps in, and then that's eventually where the British invasion and the Beatles end and explode onto America. And you have the invention of the teenager, which the whole concept of the teenager wasn't even a thing until the 1950s, because it was either you were a kid, and then as soon as you could work, leave the house, and be of childbearing age, you're an adult. There's not this in-between period of being a teenager until the 1950s. And with the creation of the teenager, someone who could have their own car, go to school, have a bit more independence, delay real life a little bit, they wanted to spend their money on things. And Madison Avenue and the music industry looked at this emerging market and said, we need to sell stuff to them. And they realized they wanted rock music and they wanted the Beatles. And it wasn't just teenagers with the Beatles, it was kids too. It was across the board just a youth marketing attack. And that is still a strategy you see in marketing today, where they really target kids and teenagers, because those are the people who are going to be most passionate, most willing to spend their money on something. Also, you had the foundation of African American music, so the blues and R&B, that basically provided the foundation for rock to build itself on, because most rock groups, including the Beatles, were just doing covers of blues and R&B songs, and they got repackaged with these British dudes or white American dudes that was more palatable to the American audience, because they weren't ready for a mainstream black artist at that time to at least cross over to the point of Beatles popularity. And so that played a huge part in allowing the Beatles to have great success, because they could look to these great artists from the past and say, well, okay, we'll just steal their ideas. Not literally steal. They acknowledged it, but in effect, kind of taking their style and their sensibilities and applying it to their own and making their own hybrid version of it. And that's what rock came from. And that's what the Beatles came from. And you also have the advent of television, which blasts out your image across the country, across the world. Obviously, the famous story of the Beatles going on the Ed Sullivan Show, and from that day on, just inspiring tons of people to get into music and start bands and just spread their popularity, spread their image. And I mentioned before the excellent marketing. And on top of all that, you have the lucky draw of two geniuses in John Lennon and Paul McCartney joining the same group. And you have one of, maybe not a genius, but a really, really, really great artist in George Harrison as well. I mean, that's a lot of variables that had to go right to make the Beatles as culturally relevant as they were and not just be a flash in the pan. So, considering all those variables, all those cultural forces, all those cultural dynamics, this historical, geopolitical domino effects, will we see that again in the future? We have not seen a Beatlemania since in America. We've approached it sometimes, but ultimately we have not gotten to the point of a Beatlemania. Is it even possible to see in the future? I mean, on the one hand, it's easy to say no. It's just that was a once 500-year event that, you know, required all this perfect storm of variables to come together to create Beatlemania. It's going to be hard to replicate that. On the other hand, are we really going to tell ourselves that was the final iteration of mass fame that connects to an entire generation? I'm not sure. Maybe, but that seems a bit foolish just saying it out loud. You have to think there'd be someone who comes along. But look at the internet, right? It's basically created this fractured culture due to the nature of the internet, where it incentivizes niches and echo chambers, because you don't need to watch the same 4 channels or listen to the same 5 radio stations. You have a plethora of choices. You have infinite amount of platforms and media choices. It's hard for an entire generation to be on the same page as they were in the 50s, where it's like, we only have these 2 radio stations that play rock and roll music. Everyone's listening to that, so we can all have a conversation about it. Now, it's like everyone's in their own little corners, their own little interests, which is great in its own way, but it doesn't incentivize the sort of mass cultural contagions that Beatlemania was, to where everyone's tuned into the same music, the same people. They're all talking the same language about art specifically. That is a very, very difficult thing to do with the internet. But with all that being said, a wise man once said, Matthew McConaughey, time is a flat circle. And I don't want to doubt McConaughey. I do want to I don't want to doubt him. He might be right. We might see Beatlemania again. I mean, it almost seems crazy that we wouldn't have another mass hysterical generational celebrity status like that. But then again, who knows? Maybe that was it. Maybe that's what makes the Beatles as special as they are, is you can't even repeat that. It was that unique. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you that please remember to subscribe to the show. Write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. Have a good night. Catch you guys later this week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.